Hello and welcome to the News Express, exclusively brought to you by Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. I am Chukunonso Modi. Now we have eye-catching stories hitting the front page this week. Let's take a look. Now the big story, inflation serves CBN a la carte as MPC meets. Sub-headlines, tweak of the rates by marginal 25 basis points. Second headline says billions in taxes, wages to be lost in Lagos or Carte ban. Sub-headline 37,000 riders may be affected. Another sub-headline lingering battle LASG versus motorcycles riders. Now you should also check out Nigeria Frontier Markets with Ndubuoke saying wide followers entrepreneur, and then there's technology and innovation with hybrid work and Nigerian managers, and an investment saying CBN open banking plan draws attention. Now let's bring in Philip Isakba, the publisher of Business AM, to help us make sense of the headlines. Good morning, Philip.
Yeah, good morning, Onso. It's good to be back again. Another bright week ahead. Look forward to great things happening in the economy.
Yes, definitely. Good to have you back too. Now, let's go straight to the headlines. This first one really caught my attention, and it says inflation serves CBN a la carte as MPC meets. What a headline, Mr. Philip. Very funny headline, if I must say.
Yes. Interesting things are happening all over the world. At least inflation was doing a retreat, even though it wasn't leaving the double-digit mark. But we were happy to see it. Retreat gradually. Yeah. For a very long time it did. And then remember the December inflation numbers when they then came out in January, when we thought it was the festivities or the Christmas and festivities that brought that about. And then since then it's been something else. But a la carte in the sense that globally, whether you're talking about America, the US, or you're talking about Canada, or you're talking about the entire European Union, the Bank of England in particular has been very worried. Inflation numbers that came out a couple of in the last month or so, early this month, it showed that it was the highest that they had gone in about 20 or 40 years. Not really sure now. But what it is that inflation has been given jitters, globally. Quantitative easing that started since 2008, 2007, 2008, 2009. Global policymakers trying to rein in, what you call the financial crisis that started that year. And then the COVID situation that came up again, they tried to fight this, maintaining quantitative easing, keeping interest rates at very low levels, for a very long time, and then I haven't spent so much money, I haven't pumped so much money into the different economies of the world, of Europe and in some parts of Africa, including Nigeria in particular. The CBN did pump a lot of money into the economy. You were bound to definitely have inflation, come at the world, and that's been a major problem that the World Bank, the IMF, have been talking about for quite some time, and then you then have this crisis in Ukraine, Russia-Ukraine war that is going on, and a whole lot of things have had to happen as a result of that. But it is inflation that we're talking about. Inflation is up in America. Inflation is up in the UK. Inflation is up in so many other countries, particularly the Western world. And all central banks across the entire, whether the Federal Reserve of the US or the Bank of England, and on the talk of South Africa as well.
Yes, definitely South Africa.
They've been worried sick about inflation, and they have been responding. Now, the CBN, has maintained a monetary policy, that has that has stayed stable, not responding, to what's going on in different parts of the world. There were times we spoke here that they were going to respond following what was happening in the other parts of the economies of the world, and they didn't. So we now a la carte served them because inflation has really gone up. Let's see how they will respond. The thing is that we're waiting for them to respond. Let's see what the meeting of today and then tomorrow will produce. Is the CBN going to respond with regards to what's going on all over the world, or are they going to maintain a mute situation? Inflation is here, the point is that the level to which it has risen to, the CBN has not been able to keep inflation at its own targeted what's the single digit numbers, for God knows how long.
Yes.
More than 4 years now. Even this is the 7th year. The MFLA has been talking about. His policy was to keep inflation at single digit. But he has never achieved that throughout his tenure. And this is what the a la carte we're talking about. So the Monetary Policy Committee, wise men and wise women, inflation is here. What are you going to do about it? Well, how are you going to respond? Are you going to look the other way, or are you going to, we're suggesting a 25 basis points increase, let's see how they respond. And that is the a la carte we're talking about. It's almost like saying, we have no choice. Inflation is here. We have to do something about it.
Yes. It's worrying, like you said, that inflation is not new to Nigeria. Like you mentioned, other serious capital cities too have it. The United States Federal Reserve, Kingdom's Bank of England, and European Central Bank, they all have this. And they're really fighting to ensure that it doesn't go more than, what it already is. Their response is swift and fast. But here it's like a norm. It's more like it has found comfort in the Nigerian economy, and they are not budging. We make projections, we say they should do this, but nothing is happening. It's very worrying.
That is the surprise, that when you follow the Nigerian economy and policymakers and how they respond, this is one concerning aspect of it. The central bank has price stability, inflation fighting as a major key part of its remit.
Yes.
But when you go to the Federal Reserve, once inflation begins to crop up or go up, they respond in a way that that seems to be like fighting a war. In the Bank of England, the economy is in serious trouble because of inflation. Cost of living has gone up in England, and the debate in Parliament and in England is about cost of living. Not just cost of living, but what you call how it actually directly impacts the people. Cost. If you talk about energy cost in England, it's gone up. If you talk about cost of food items, it's gone up. Every aspect of the cost has gone up. And this directly impacts on the people, and that is why they take inflation very, very seriously. But it's a different ball game back in the country because like we said, the KPI with which we measure the performances of the different people who head up these institutions don't seem to matter.
No one is held accountable.
It's almost like what are you measuring the central bank governor on? Is it that he's just the central bank governor and he goes on being the central bank governor? The central bank has a remit, and you must be looking at the remit of the central bank and be asking what exactly is going on. And inflation targeting, he targeted single digit, and that hasn't been achieved. There's so many things anyway. You probably wouldn't blame him for everything. Very concerned that nobody is looking at some parameters that ought to be looked at. Inflation is one of them, and then that's why we say the MPC, Monetary Policy Committee, meeting today and tomorrow, will have to. will look no further, because they have to look at inflation and see how they tackle inflation. They probably wouldn't budge, like they haven't done in many meetings, but you'll expect that there will be some form of response, but they'll look at other issues. They look at the entire economy as a whole, but we're talking about the real spending that we are looking forward to hasn't even started, because we've talked about election year, coming up in 2023, and then the spending towards election hasn't really started, and that's some money, that will come into the economy. The central bank has exposed itself in terms of the amount of the ways and means lending that it has given to the federal government. That is not even looked at when you look at when you are accounting for how much the debt that Nigeria owes, whether domestic and local. The ways and means is quite a lot. And that's the part. Of course, you have the fact that the food basket is a major part of the inflationary pressure that we're having, but you also have the fact that money has been perhaps printed, that shouldn't have been printed. With the ways and means that have the borrowings that the federal government has taken, from the CBN is quite a lot, So inflation is here. They will have to deal with it.
Yes, they will have to deal with it. And honestly, we are hoping that they take the 25 basis point hike. This might help to combat this inflation rate. But then it's the CBN, it's MPC committee meeting. I remember how many times analysts will make projections, and then it becomes it goes AWOL. It goes the other side.
Yes.
So
yes, we just have to wait for them and see what decision they take.
Yes, definitely. Now let's go to the second headline, which says billion in taxes, wages to be lost in Lagos Okada ban. Now, according to the report I see here, billions of naira may be lost effective June 1, 2022, as the Lagos state government begins a gradual clearance of commercial motorcyclists, popularly known as Okada riders, from Nigeria's commercial capital city. Now, 37 riders may be affected. This is alarming, Mr. Philip. Billions of naira is a lot of money.
Well, there are so many things to weigh up here. Of course,
yes.
As a financial newspaper, we probably just zero in on the numbers and say billions, of course, billions in taxes. Of course, we're talking about 37,000 riders,
yes.
who might be affected. So there are different levels on which you look at the financial implications of this. Government, Lagos state government wouldn't say that they're not getting some returns, from the number of Okadas that you have on the streets of Lagos, So you're looking at some losses being made here, and if you put the numbers together, you'll probably find that they will run into billions, because on the level of taxes, you will expect that the government will of course take a haircut or two haircuts, as it were, as a result of this decision. And then you can also go down to so the 37,000 riders, of course, for many of them, if not all of them, it's their job that they have to do, and so if it's their job, that's where they earn their income, their wages, and so you expect some money to be lost in that regards, affecting the individual riders. You can put that together and put the numbers together, how much they make a day, how much they make a week, how much they make a month, and then you come to some pretty amount of money that will be lost as a result of this.
Yes.
And so we put that together, we put everything together, we look at how much Lagos State has been making in terms of internally generated revenue, looking at the National Bureau of Statistics numbers, that we analyzed, Lagos State generated 127 billion in the first quarter of 2021, and then 267.23 billion, after the first 6 months of 2021, and then the data also shows 45 billion in monthly internally generated revenue, and put together, you have 40 billion naira, as internally generated revenue for 2021, looking at MBS numbers. And that is why Lagos State is considered a very rich state, because it's able to generate a huge amount of money internally, it's in such a way that if it's well managed, if it's well put together, it might not need federal government support. It's about to pass a budget that is 1.7, not too sure now, 1.7 trillion naira for 2022. That's huge. And it will need to go to look for money, from different sources, including some of which used to come from the Okada. Some of which comes from the Okada riders. And with this ban, you're going to have an adjustment to expected revenue, because if you wouldn't be factoring this as from June 1 when this ban is expected to come into place. But this is a battle that has been going on for quite a long time. It's not today. This start today. We have traced this, to the point of saying, you're looking at largely, let's call it the loose system in place with regards to Okada riders, the way we have it now. But you can also go back in time. If you're looking at the attempt to have an organized system, the go-kadders of this world, the go-kadders and the rest of them
even before the go-kadders, the helmet that they were saying, the rider and the passenger must wear helmets, those things were there before, but now it's no longer.
Absolutely. It's always, we try to bring out the story of how the Lagos State government and the motorcycle riders and all the Okada riders have been battling, have been trying to, the government has been trying to push, take them out of the system, with different type of different policies, that have been put in place, especially that aspect of people having to wear helmets, and then it wasn't just the Okada, the Okada riders who had to wear helmets, but they also had to the passengers had to also wear helmets, and then so many stories began to crop up, and you will have I recall you will have people who will passengers who will just take the helmet and hold the helmet in one hand, and put it over their head, because they didn't want the helmet to be on their head. That's because so many different people using the helmets and different sorts of diseases, whatever could be, they could be infected, so they avoided that, that's on the social aspect of it, and then you then had a situation where the go-kadders and came on board to try to bring some sanity, because these guys found that there was a market in that area. If you needed to organize it better, just like the other hail riders businesses, hail riding businesses that came up, so they try to bring some sanity into the system, but what we found was that there had been some clashes between these guys and tax forces, Of course, the story that went out at that time was that they were trying to bring some sanity, and that they were costing additional traffic on the road, but there was no attempt to try to bring to organize them better, all what we saw was that there was a ban, that they were not going to have them, at all. But there was also the allegation, allegedly, said that it was because they were taking businesses from people who had thousands and thousands of Okadas and who were influential, who were some government people or so, and they fought against that, and because it was not just about Okada transportation, because you still had Okada transportation, but the attempt to bring some sanity, some organized system to it, did not go down well with people who saw that people were preferring to go with the go-karters and they'll pay, all right or whatever, instead of the regular Okadas, So you've had that going on for a long time, and it's just about, of course, the social aspect of it in terms of the security aspect with regards to what happened at Lekki, is something that needed to be dealt with, but you should deal with it in the policy shouldn't be knee-jerk in terms of responding just quickly, to what you think. It needs proper planning, of course, Lagos. In the real sense, Lagos State shouldn't be having Okada as part of transportation. We're talking about a 540 billion internally generated revenue state. It should be developing serious, some strong transportation system. It's a state, that you have that is. Surrounded by water, that you wonder why there isn't a stronger system of what's it called, the boats or whatever, for movement of people from one part of the country, especially because it will help with the congestion, the traffic congestion, because you always want to try to find a way, to remove obstacles from the way. If something isn't working, you want to try some other things. That's what happens in different parts of the world. Just be, to go in. If this isn't happening, that shouldn't happen. It shouldn't always be like that. It's about thinking. It's about sitting down. And finding alternatives or finding solutions to the issues. So you should have a more organized system, of transportation, that will ensure that what you call the Okada system, doesn't find any avenue to drive, because if it wasn't driving, people wouldn't be going into it. If it wasn't serving as alternative, people wouldn't be going into it. So that would be the take on this. It's so much more. It's quite a lot happening, with regards to this. The what's called violence or the security risk, could be well handled in terms of policy, in terms of the systematic approach or approaches to security issue with regards to Okada, but sometimes a government responds emotionally.
Yes. I agree with you that there's so many aspects to this. It's not just the financial. And yes, these Okada riders have gone AWOL in quite some time now, because honestly, if you see how they drive, really, sometimes you put your heart in your mouth when you're in Okada, because you're praying that you get to your destination safe. But people like using it because it's faster. You mentioned about the roads being congested. So you imagine if I left my house around 5 and I'm still waiting for a bus till like 7. I have to jump back because my boss will not hear that, there was no bus on the road or this and that happened. And I feel too that the government is too quick to place a ban, because this ban you're placing, so many people will be rendered jobless. That will cost a whole lot to the system as well. It's not like there are jobs outside for people to do. Most of these people that pick up these bikes, they don't have a job to do, so they fall back on the bikes. Let's leave the fact that they also use it to, cause crime and havoc. But then they fall back. So this ban you have put now, like this report said, 37,000 riders. What do those people do with themselves? I mean, there can be policies put in place, like you said, but it's just that in Nigeria as a whole, we put policies in place, but we never follow through. So even if we say, okay, like we made mention of the helmets and the rest, if they were following through with those things, they will be more, they will be aligned. They'll be, should I use the word, sane. But we don't follow through. We just put in place, maybe it works for 2-3 months and everything goes back to the way it was before.
Exactly, you're right, Nonso. If you even look back, this particular government, has. It came out. The Okada ban, has happened maybe 2-3 times before. Before this particular one. The thing is that policy, of course, policy seems to be knee-jerk, like I said earlier. And then some kind of emotional response, to when some policies are issued. Now, if there was any serious attempt, to bring sanity to the Okada system, even if you wanted to allow it to exist, you could say for every local government, there's a maximum amount of Okada that should be on the road or on the street.
Exactly.
So you have people on the waiting list, to join the business. You can say that if they did a detailed study, they can find out what number of Okada should be in a local government, what number of Okada should be in a particular place, so that, for instance, if you have a large franchise, to say you have 1,000 Okada in this local government, but out of that 1,000, 500 will be in a particular hotspot or the big areas, and then you spread the other 500 in different parts of it, and then it will be more organized in that way, because you will have a limit to which Okada, because every Okada that comes into the system will have to be registered. And if they go to register, you say, oh, sorry, because people will now have to make inquiries. So we have to ask, before they go and buy even any Okada, that is there a space for because we have people on the waiting list. They will be on the waiting list waiting to be registered or to be given license to operate. So you can say that instead of 37,000 riders, Lagos will not accommodate more than 10,000. And then you bring some sanity to the system.
Exactly.
And everybody that is not registered will be taken out of the system. And that way you will know exactly who is getting registered.
Who is not.
And the type of character that you are registering to do the Okada business in the state. But once they come up with this, the moment they come up with this, remember that this is not across the entire state. It's about 6 local governments, right?
Yes.
So they will come up with this, and the next thing you'll find is that they've gone to bed, until something else happens the next time,
Exactly,
and then they'll come up with another one.
They start fire brigade service or not again.
Exactly, yes.
Well, we'll really have to watch out and see what happens, because we've said this over and over. They've done this before. They banned Okada. After some time, they came back. So let's just hope that they find a way around this thing.
We hope so too. We hope so.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. We'll definitely see how the stories develop this week, and we'll also look out for the MPC meeting and its result.
Absolutely, Lonzo. Have a great week.
You too. That was Philip Isakwa, the publisher, Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. You can also listen again by going to www.africabusinessradio.com at the News Express podcast. That's all for now. Stay tuned for more.